Hi everyone and welcome to Veterans in Crisis podcast. Today we have Paul, and Paul is our new business development manager. Hi Paul, you alright?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you.
I know they sort of sprung this on you.
Yes.
So it's meant to be light-hearted, so it doesn't matter boring, alright?
Alright.
Alright, mate. So, business development manager for VIX. Do you want to explain your role?
Yeah, as the business development manager for VIX, I'm, where's the video gone? It's gone. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I've come in to do is to look at where the funding's coming in for the company and to look at where the business can develop into other areas within the Sunderland area. So looking at bringing in business, not necessarily directly as funds, but the opportunities for the Veterans in Crisis to grow as a company so that we start working in other areas using our veterans as volunteers to do work, to get employment, to build the company.
Yeah,
so that's what I'm looking to do.
So basically, when we wanted to make the business a bit more sustainable and not ask for handouts all the time, which is draining in itself, we looked into several kind of businesses to start up. One of them being the removals business. So that's going to be our first one where we bought the van. Now we just need to get everything in place to employ a couple of veterans to run it. And then once they get paid, any profit comes back into VIX, which is a model we're going to try and run throughout loads of businesses.
Yeah, so that's the ideal way that we're going to do it. But we want to build in lots of different pieces to that jigsaw. So doing the removals is one thing, but where we're doing clearances and we've got an abundance of furniture and white goods and things like that, where the veterans can get these things where they need it, we can also turn a profit in from those items by selling them. So having a retail arm to sell that. But then on top of that, you can say, right, if people are coming in to buy this, let's give them a coffee. So we're selling a coffee and maybe a biscuit. And that way it's just helping to turn over our own income rather than getting it all from funding. Getting the funding is a job in itself, and you need to have lots of different outlets. So we'll look at the removals, we'll look at moving into areas where the skills the veterans have that can make money by delivering a service for the public. And
employing veterans. That's one of our main areas at the moment, to try and get people into decent work, not just any job. With prospects.
It's building a pathway for the veterans to have something to focus on. Whether they've come off the path, what we want to do is to get them structured, working constantly, and it'll just broaden the horizons for them, but also for us as a company.
So with the model that I set up, you had to be from Sunderland, you had to be a veteran. Obviously you're from Sunderland, but you're from Scotland really, but you learn to speak correctly. So we didn't have to put subtitles on. And you're also a veteran. So would you like to speak a little bit about your childhood and then why you became why you decided to join the army?
Okay, I was born when my father was a bricklayer. But shortly after, he joined the RAF. He was in the RAF for a few weeks, and they kept breaking his mug when they did an inspection. They said his mug was always dirty. So he was in RAF Catterick at the time, and his cousin was down the road in the Royal Signals. So he did a runner, he went AWOL, and he joined the Royal Signals. And the reason he did that was they had tin mugs.
Yeah, I was going to say they had dirty mugs.
So anyway, I've grown up in the army. When when my dad was posted out to Belgium, the education system only allowed up to 10 years old in the British system. So I was sent off to a military boarding school, and I went to a military boarding school in Scotland.
What was that like?
And everyone thinks that if you've been to a boarding school, it's all nicey. It's all paid for by your parents, so they must be rich. This boarding school was paid for by the government. So it's slightly different. And people were there from all ranks. There were some people whose dads were officers, and there were some like myself whose dads were, I think at the time, a sergeant. He must have just got promoted to sergeant then. So we were from all areas of the world, all areas of the UK, but the one factor that we all had was it all had something to do with Scotland. They were either Scottish or in a Scottish regiment. That doesn't mean we all spoke with Scottish accents, because we'd all been everywhere. So anyway, at 16, I decided I had enough of being in a classroom and I wanted to join the army. And I joined the Army Catering Corps. And
obviously, you wanted to kill people,
Yeah, well, I did a lot of killing the people.
You probably killed more than everybody who's in the catering corps.
Well, certainly had the opportunity to do so. And on some occasions, I've probably tried, but I'm not going to go into that too much. But the Army Catering Corps was hard work at times, and at other times, it was the biggest laugh going. It was really enjoyable. When I was in my apprentice years from 16 to 18, obviously you were just in amongst everybody else who were young kids that were raring to go. When we got to the real world, when we were sent out to the regiments, it all changed. Off I went to Germany. I went to 13 Signal Regiment, my first posting. It just so happens to be the same posting that my father had after he finished training in Catterick. He went to 13 Signal Regiment as well, but he was a scaly. So anyway,
did anyone from the regiment know your dad then?
Well, I'm just coming to that.
Yeah, fucking hell. Yeah, sorry for asking questions.
Yeah, you're interrupting.
All right, anyway, I'll just be quiet then.
So the reason I was sent there was the colonel of the regiment was in charge of the army rugby team, and I'd done quite well playing rugby in the army Colts. So when I got to Germany, the colonel wanted to see me play rugby, and my boss, the master chef, wanted me to be working, and there was a bit of a fight over that. But one of the things that 13 Signal Regiment did was they provided the training courses for the Lance Jacks and corporals to do their courses to be ready for being a sergeant. So they would all come and they would be beaten to death on the parade square and every other thing that every other soldier does in order to progress. So when they would come in to the cookhouse and get fed, I'd be serving in there and I'd be saying hello to them, how are you doing, etc. And I says to one of them, I says, where do you work then? He says, oh, I'm down the road in Lipstadt. And I says, all right. I says, do you know my dad? He's a warrant officer, Peter Mcloughlin. Before I know it, I had a punch in the face. Right. So this guy did know me, but he knew my father. He punched me because he didn't like my dad. So
are you sure it wasn't your coupon?
Yeah, I know. Could have been, but as soon as I mentioned his name, I got a punch. So with 13 Signal Regiment, they had a small detachment on the East German border when that was there, and I was sent up there for 2 years, and so I was in a very small place called Gross Gusborn with a troop called H Troop, and all sneaky beaky. And that was great. They sent me off doing lots of work with them. Very interesting. And from there, I went down to the Falklands, did my time in the Falklands, and then I came back to the military hospital in Catterick. That's where I met my wife, who was a nurse in the army. And following that, I got a punishment posting to the Blues and Royals in Germany, in Sunderland. But they came back to the UK about 2 months later, and in came the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards. I worked with the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards in Sunderland. They came back to Tidworth, and then that's where I spent the rest of my army career.
Why was it a punishment?
The Blues and Royals have rules and regulations that are different to the rest of the army, as I'm sure you're aware. You're not allowed to wash your car unless it's a Sunday. You're not allowed to wear shorts. You had to wear this. You had all.
Whoa! You're not allowed to wash your car unless it's a Sunday.
Well, things like that, yes.
Oh, I'd be fucked me because I'd be at church, so I wouldn't be able to wash my car.
There you go then. So came back to Tidworth and with the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards. They were a good regiment, and then I worked with the Royal Hussars, and then the Lancers, 13th, 18th Lancers, and then that was me. The opportunity to leave came up after I'd done my 9 years, and after I'd done 12 years, and I decided to leave. I wasn't getting promoted. I was qualified for promotion quite young. I got promoted quite young, both times, and then they stopped. When it came to me being a sergeant, they didn't want me to be a sergeant. That's another thing. And then I came into Civvy Street, and that was a job.
Before we get on to Civvy Street, when you were in the forces, what was your standout moment? Doesn't have to be like something military. It might have been just the best laugh you had, or what was the best person or the best thing that happened. You didn't say meet me wife, because she'll not be watching this.
No, no. Probably the best thing, when you look at it as the best thing, was I had to put on a demonstration to the Queen on field cooking.
All right.
So that was good. The Queen came along, and I was baking bread. There was hundreds of people doing everything. You know, when the Queen comes, there's 101 other people following along. And I baked some bread, and she came into the tent. I told her what we were doing, explained everything. And she said, "Oh, the bread looks lovely." I said, "Hey, would you like a slice, Mum?" And this general peered over her shoulder and says, "You're having your lunch in a minute." And I says, "Yes, and I'm cooking your lunch. So you can have a piece of this, and then you'll see how good it'll be." So she said, "Oh, yes, that'll be lovely." Cut a piece off. She takes a bite out of it, puts it on the plate, and off she goes. I pick up the piece of bread, stick it in an empty fag packet, and had it for years. I only threw it away about 10 years ago.
It was all getting rock hard.
But I was showing everybody the colour of her lipstick so they could go and buy it, you see. My gran and my mother-in-law and
well, I'm walking around with a bit of bread gone. Have you got that?
Look at this. This is what I want when I went into Debenhams.
No wonder Debenhams has closed down. Lunatics like that walking around with bits of bread.
I know. Anyway, a funny story, wasn't funny for the guys that were affected by it, was my very first exercise where I was out by myself cooking in the field was with 13th Signal Regiment. There was a sergeant major, a couple of sergeants, a couple of corporals that were on the training staff, and then there was about 60 guys on the course, and they went to a place called Grobendonk. Have you heard of Grobendonk? small place down in Holland, near Holland or in Holland, I don't know. Anyway, it's just a big training ground place like Salisbury Plain, I suppose. This was all full of marshes and trees and paths and all sorts. So when we got there, I had to set up my kitchen, and the sergeant major says to me, he says, young man, I want a cup of tea before we start the training with these guys. And I says, okay, sir, I'll go and do it. So I had a number 2 burner. Are you aware of the burners we have?
Yeah.
Great big things. You have to fill them up with fuel, pump them up, get the pressure up, heat up the petrol, turns to a gas, heat your water, make your tea. So I was looking at, I had my jerry can full of fuel, and I was looking for a funnel to pour it into the tank. It wasn't there. It was gone. I was thinking, what am I going to put it in here with? I can't get that petrol in without something small. I thought, oh, I'll just use that pot. It was a teapot. So I poured the petrol in, poured it into the burner, lit it up, and just rinsed out the pot that I used to fill the fuel in. So nevertheless, the tea was made, and the sergeant major says, where's my teapot? And I said, oh, we haven't got it. We've got it. I know the teapot's there. Put it in the teapot. Fair enough. So teapot goes in full of, well, the remnants of the fuel with his tea. So when he drinks it, this is disgusting. What made you do this? So I says, well, one of the lads you sent in to help me in the kitchen, he put the fuel in for me.
Yeah, he put
which was
grass.
I wasn't grassing him. It was just a lie. I was thinking, I'm going to get killed here. I'm just
Neither one of that bloke punched you in the face when you were serving him scran. He knows what you like.
But the thing is, the sergeant major went ballistic, and he beasted these lads for about 2 hours. They come in, they were absolutely covered in every bit of mud and muck you could think of. And they come in, they were exhausted. And then they had to go and start doing the training. In between times, I give them a meal. None of them knew that it was because of me.
Oh, I hope to watch this and to find out where you live.
Probably.
There's the thing about the army, right? So the sergeant major, because his tea was shit, he beasted loads of lads for 2 hours, man. What's that about? You know what I mean? Why couldn't he not just went, I'll just have another cup of tea?
Yeah, well, he could have.
Yes.
But then he wouldn't have been a sergeant major. No, he'd have been a corporal.
Yeah, well, he would have been a normal human being, I think. That's the type of shit I hated when I was in the army. If they had a bad, if they were married and they got shit off the wife, they used to come in, torture you all day. You know what I mean? Absolutely rubbish. So that's why you get shot in the back leg when there's a war on.
I used to go home to visit my parents, and my dad was friends with the regimental sergeant major. And the regimental sergeant major was just a typical regimental sergeant major. He was an absolute beast. And when he used to come round to my mum and dad's house for a couple of beers or watch the football or something like that in Lippstadt, my dad still had to call him sir.
Did
he was straight down the line, military all the way. He was a character as well, but it's hard to believe that some people go on like that.
That's what pissed me off about the army, the way you like, especially private and stuff, the way you get treated, you know.
Aye.
And it's bullshit. It's just, you know, it's for no reason other than to say it's happened for years. So, but fucking hell, slavery happened for years. That stopped, you know.
Yeah, well, yes, and I do know that the attitude of bullying kind of has stopped in the army. My brother, he joined the army a few years after me, and he was telling me that he couldn't shout at men now, because if he did, they raised it as a problem, and he was in trouble, not the privates. So yeah, it's a different army these days.
Yeah, I think the problem is retention, isn't it? People staying in.
Yeah.
People's not used to it now. You know, people, they're not used to being treated like shit. Yeah,
No.
I understood when you did training that that's the way you would be treated. What I didn't think would be when you were being in 4 or 5 years, you're still getting treated like that.
It was still the same, yeah.
And it's just bullshit. That's all it is, really. It's bullshit.
Yeah. As a chef, I wasn't quite put on in the same way that the rest of the troops were, because I was in the kitchen. All I was there for was to cook, get the meals ready, get the next meal ready, and so on and so on. Every now and then I'd do my basic fitness test or my combat fitness test and any other little bits and pieces that the army wanted us to do. As long as we provided the food, we were kind of left to our own devices.
Sorry, mate, I don't know what that noise is.
You don't know.
Just this phone. Sorry. Right. Carry on, Paul. I was sorry about that. I do apologize.
Yeah. So we didn't have to suffer in the way that the troops did when they were at a loose end and somebody decided that they were going to make them do something. Slightly different for us.
We were speaking about it the other day. It was like it would be boring because you'd have to do the same shit over and over again. You know what I mean? But then they would say like stay in your room so nobody could see you. But who wants to do? I didn't join the army to stay in my room. You know what I mean? We had the whole of Berlin. I could have been gone exploring. I was fucking staying in my room all the time.
Did you go to Berlin? You were very lucky.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that good, mate, to be quite honest, because I went from Ireland where it was a different kind of pressure to Berlin, where like sort of the eyes of the world were on you, and you know, the Americans and Russians, and there's a lot of polishing your kit and marching around like a lunatic.
Well, I was lucky in that I didn't get that much to do, must say. I mean, at school, at boarding school, I had to polish my shoes just like a soldier. I could march just like a soldier. I used a rifle. At 10 years old, I did rifle drill with a Lee Enfield 303.
So is this is that the same for all boarding schools, like where the army kids gone?
I don't know if it is now, but it was then.
Huh? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, while we went to the school, the first
I'm assuming this was in the 1800s anyway, wasn't it? When the Enfield.
Of course, yeah. But you know, when you join the army, you go along the line and you get given a pair of boots, and then you get given your combat trousers.
You'll grow into them, Mike.
Well, this is what we got as well. We joined the school, and you went in a line, and you got your uniform. You know, we had to wear the kilt.
A kilt.
Cross-dresser. The kilt. So, and we had a dress kilt for our number one dress, and we wore with a red tunic, just like you'll see on ceremonies with the guards. We had a walking out dress, so the same kilt with a different jacket. And if you ever left school, you had to wear the kilt. And that got us into much trouble, because we'd go out and all the Scottish kids outside of the school would kilty, and so we'd be fighting with them.
Were they lifting your skirt up?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Scaring them away.
Like on the Carry On films.
Just like that. I was watching the TV the other day with Gordon Ramsay and the Gino and the Fred guy. And they were in Scotland, and they were running after cows, holding the kilts up. And my wife was going, "Is that you?"
Right, exactly. She wished. Moving on from when you left the army, what was your transition like? Was it smooth, or did you suffer?
I wasn't a happy man at the time. I did my resettlement courses, and I wanted to go into sales. I have this basic instinct of people want to eat, so cook for them. People have money, take it off them and spend it for them. So that's the idea that took me into sales. And to get a job in sales, especially with my background in catering, was almost impossible. Well, it was impossible. I couldn't get a job. And eventually I got a job selling insurance. And in 1991, when I left the army, I came to live in Sunderland. That's when I started living in Sunderland. So I've lived in Sunderland longer than anywhere else I have in my life. Before, it was every 3 years, wherever my folks went, that's where I went. So, and then I joined the army and went all over the place as well. So coming into Civvy Street, I get this job with an insurance company. And they basically wanted you to contact everyone you knew and sell insurance to them. Well, I didn't know anyone in Sunderland apart from my wife, my mother-in-law. I didn't know anybody. So the other thing that you could do was knock on doors. So I've knocked on doors throughout the whole of the Northeast. I've been told to go away in every language you can imagine. I've had the biggest, fiercest dogs snapping at my face. And I learned very quickly what somebody meant when they said no. But I had to put bread on the table. So I kept at it.
You should have kept that bit of the Queen.
Yeah.
It's not as dangerous, mate.
I still had it, but the colour of the lipstick was still good enough to take me as evidence. So I quickly became destitute. I didn't have any money, and I was thinking, who can I turn to? The army weren't there. There was nothing I could turn to once I'd finished my resettlement course. What can I do? So I applied for a job in Hartlepool at the newspaper selling advertising. And I got the job, not because I was good at selling, not because of anything other than I could give the two women that interviewed me recipes that they could take home. I did very well at the selling. And after 4 years, they wouldn't pay me anymore for hitting my targets. So I said, well, I'll go to someone who'll pay me more money for doing my job. So I started selling advertising on the buses. That then just blossomed until I was made redundant in 2008 because of the recession. Got back into the same business again, but not selling, and then got made redundant because of the COVID. And that then brought me to you after a few months. Which
see how great your life's turned out now, mate.
There you go.
Now you're an internet star. Everybody in the country knows about that bit of bread now with the Queen. I bet people start writing in asking for the colour thing.
Well, I'm sure they will, but I didn't note it down. I was probably busy doing my nails or something.
Ah, exactly, mate,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, yeah, I want to thank you for coming on, explaining what you're doing, and obviously you fit in at Vix. You know what I mean? You fit in.
Yeah.
You know,
I enjoy my work at Vix. It's certainly opening my eyes to lots of problems. I was on a webinar this morning, and I was getting very irate at what the people were saying, because it didn't take into account people who had problems. And I was thinking that they need to know this, but I'm not going to start shaking the tree just yet.
It's surprising that people whose life's going great don't realise that other people have problems. You know, it's human nature, but
this was a Major General talking in some other officer. He was probably some Lieutenant Colonel or something when he was in.
Well, if you want to get them back, mate, cook them some food.
Make them a cup of tea in a pot full of pepper.
Exactly. I like to say, them come round here, beast nuts. And by the way, I look rough as anything because I've just ran 9 miles, took me t-shirt off, put this on, and sat straight down. And my legs are killing at the minute, absolutely killing. But me and Sean O'Neill, one of the clients, Sean would like to do the Sunderland Half Marathon. So I said I'd train with him to do it. Excellent. That's the furthest we've done today, 9.9 miles. and we've got 2 months, I think it is, to get
So
to
you'll be
30.
off to put your feet up now, will you?
No, my day never stops, mate. Never stops. I don't know what I've got on after this, to be honest.
Well, my next Zoom meeting is with Sunderland Council in 20 minutes. Then I've got another one at 2 o'clock today. Internet star now.
See, once I see you on this, mate, it'll be all go. Right, hey, you take care, and I'll speak to you later on today, all right, mate?
Okay, cheers now, Jay.
Thanks for coming on. Cheers, mate. Ta-ra.
Cheers now, bye-bye.